Hello, I'm Igor, and in this episode I am testing eSUN filament dryer, and this box is sent to me by Banggood for a review. But before I start with unboxing, a few words, when do we need this kind of equipment? 3D printing filaments absorb moisture from the air, and this negative effect we can notice during 3D printing. We can see some, for example, stringing, we can notice the ugly printing surface, weaker layer adhesion, sometimes it can result even in the clogging of the nozzle. Some filaments are less sensitive to this, like PLA, ABS, ASA. I store them on open air without any problem, but of course this depends where do you live. If you live in a region with a higher humidity, then even PLA can absorb so many moisture that maybe you will need a filament dryer. But filaments like PETG, TPU, especially nylon can be completely useless if it is full of moisture, and they need to be dried. Usually I store them in these bags. I put some silica gel and I close them, but now I started to use these vacuum bags where I can use a small pump to suck the air from it. And it works very fine if it doesn't leak. Of course, filament can be dried in oven, but for the longer dryings, this means you have to place your filament inside for 12, maybe even longer time. And I don't know, in our household, I'm not allowed to use the oven for this for so long time. But for longer prints, filament can absorb moisture during the printing, so that's why dedicated filament dryer is much better solution than the oven. But now let's see what's in the box. Teflon tube. Twelve volts, 3 amperes. Inside we have these rolling elements. They will hold the spool. And filament exit is here, only one place, and we have a Teflon tube, so filament doesn't absorb moisture until it goes to the extruder of the printer. It's rolling quite nice. And now the big test. Prusa MK3s. So far I couldn't fit in none of the filament dryers I have. And it cannot fit into this eBox. Okay. No. It's too tight. So again, if I want to dry my PETG, I have to unroll some filament, and that's how I can test it. Anyway, most important job for this filament dryer is to dry this nylon filament, and I can see it will fit without any problem, of course without the bag. But I want to take it out only when I'm ready for drying and printing. I turn it on, I can hear that fan started. This is its side, so this is the heating element, and these are rollers for the spool holding. There is a fan and place for some silica gel or similar. And this fan is a little bit loud, so I think it could be a little bit quieter. And let's place the spool inside. And now it shows 510 grams. Theoretically, this is the weight of the filament only, without the spool. So this is in grams, and if I press the M button, this is in pounds. And if I press the M button again, I can see WOC, and here I can set the weight of the empty spool. For example, if it is now 220 grams, I can see now the weight, theoretically weight of the filament is more than 600 grams now. Now, if you don't know the weight of empty spool, you can check on the manufacturer website, or if the spool is new and you know that you have 1 kilogram of filament on it, then you can measure the total weight, and from that you can calculate the weight of the empty spool. And on temperature, well, you can set here only the levels. The first level is for PLA, the level 2 is for PETG, level 3 is for PVA, for example, and level 4 is for nylon or polycarbonate. And here we can set the time. This is in hours, so we can set the countdown time when to turn it off. So this will be the drying time. And that's it. So what I'm missing here is the humidity meter. It would be good to have one, because in that case we know that the silica gel is doing its job, or we have to replace it, or maybe dry it. I want to repeat the test from my previous video. I unrolled here approximately 20 meters of PETG filament, and I will leave it outside for overnight, because it's very big humidity now outside. And tomorrow I will do some test prints, dry the filament, and reprint the test prints again. These are test specimens from my previous video. Okay, see you in the morning. And here it is. I can feel how wet is this, and it's raining outside, and it's foggy, so it's very near 100% of the humidity. First attempt failed because absolutely no adhesion to the bed. Maybe it's too wet now. Okay, on second attempt it looks like it will be good. I left it dry in a room for, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. And we will see in a few minutes how it looks like. And now let's dry it. Temperature level 2 for PETG, and 6 hours drying time. And also I want to measure the power consumption. So here I have this power consumption meter. It's 9.06 kilowatt hours currently, because I can measure from these plugins the power consumption, and only now this eSUN filament dryer is connected. So theoretically it should be 40 degrees inside. It's 37. Well, we will see, will it be enough for drying. I'll just give it extra insulation since it doesn't have any. Timer is at 0. And let's see the power consumption. 9.14. Let's see, is there any noticeable weight change? And I use the same settings and G-code like with the previous printing. And as you can see, much better results, almost absolutely no stringing. But I want to test the layer adhesion too. And here they are side by side. These are my test specimens to check the layer adhesion. Only I have to remove these temporary supports. And this test is less important. This test specimen is printed in horizontal position, and I just want to check is there any difference, but theoretically it shouldn't be any difference in the tensile strength between these two printed objects. And these are the results. As I predicted, no significant difference on specimens printed in horizontal position. And those printed in vertical position, well, the difference was quite big, 32%. So yes, definitely the first one was really wet filament, and it has very big effect to the layer adhesion. Gave me nylon. I unrolled here approximately maybe 10 meters. And I will try to dry only this filament. Level 4. Twelve hours, so I will leave it overnight. It's a good start, but sometimes I can still hear those short crack sounds. And this was undried. Everything is harder to do it in front of camera. And here they are side by side. The brim is still here, I didn't clean it completely. But unfortunately I cannot see very big differences. So this one was dried with the eSUN filament dryer. I know it looks like 12 hours on the level 4 is not enough for this filament. Maybe I should try some different type of the nylon. I don't know, any suggestions? Very similar results I got with the Nylon filament dryer. Now one more thing I want to try, because I noticed that those short crack sounds appeared only periodically, and I can see on these test specimens those lines. I noticed the temperature is very different on the bottom and the top of the box. So what I did, I dried for another 12 hours and I rotated slowly every hour or 2 hours. I rotated a little bit the filament inside the drying box. I hope now it will be dried more evenly, so I will try to reprint this specimen again. And this is the first version. One more attempt to check if I can dry this filament, nylon filament at all, because this is actually one of the cheapest nylons I can find on the market here in Hungary. So I'll dry it on a really 70 degrees Celsius in oven for a couple of hours, because my wife is not here now and I have opportunity to do this. Just to be sure about temperatures, I inserted another thermometer and it shows 68. On this one is approximately 70, so the temperature is good. We will see. 3 hours of drying will it do something. Okay, let's see. Is it dried or not? Last attempt. And here they are side by side. So this was undried, this was dried 12 hours, this one additional 6 hours with the rotating, and this one was dried in the oven. And here I can clearly see that this is almost dry, because there are no lines like with the previous 2 or 3 versions. One last experiment, I placed the sensor into over tube. The sensor is approximately here, a little bit below this middle line. And in room it is 24-25 degrees Celsius, and inside at this height it is only 42, but now it is on level 4 on the maximum. I hope I can show you shortly. So it's on a level 4 now, at least 4 hours, because I dried the nylon filament, and only 42 degrees on this height. Theoretically it should be now, if I remember correctly, 60 degrees Celsius or something like that. So definitely, unfortunately, I have to say that this temperature is not enough for drying a nylon. It is good for a PETG. Of course it may help because of that silica gel which is inside here in the small fan, and of course it can help to keep the nylon dry during the printing, so that here probably I will use for that, but drying the whole spool from zero, this is not enough. Final words, well, that's why I like to do some measurements, because my opinion can be based on those facts and results. So I start what I like with this eSUN filament dryer. It has low power consumption. It is very easy to use, and it has a weight scale, so you can approximately see how many filament you have on the spool. And it has a place for silica gel and a fan inside, so that's important to keep the humidity lower inside the box. Oh, and also I like that it has the filament guide tube. I mentioned several times it is Teflon, but I'm not sure is it Teflon. It feels like it is. Teflon is important not because of it can handle higher temperatures, but it has a lower friction coefficient. And now what I didn't like with this filament dryer. First, I didn't like that it doesn't have any insulation here on the plastic, not even on this lower part. It would be good to have higher temperatures inside. And it's a little bit noisy. Here is an example of the sound. And as you can hear, there are 2 sources of the noise. One is the fan, which I don't know, so fans should be almost completely quiet. And the other is that click sound, which turns the heating element on and off. And it sounds like it is a relay instead of MOSFET transistor, which is actually which will be completely silent. And I'm really missing some kind of humidity meter here between the sensors, because that will be very important information to see is that silica gel doing its job, or I have to dry it or replace it. So that would be really good to have one. What can it be used for? Let's see, PLA. Usually you don't have to dry the PLA except if you leave some in area with a very high humidity, or you have some very old PLA filament and you have some problems with printing. In that case, that it can be saved by drying it. PETG. Now PETG is very sensitive to moisture, and definitely one of the primary jobs for this eBox would be drying a PETG. And you saw in my example I created a really extreme circumstances. Usually you don't leave the PETG filament on almost 100% humidity overnight, and even that can be dried, and I get very good results. And finally, nylon. Well, unfortunately, it looks like the 12 plus 6 hours on maximal level is not enough for completely drying the nylon. 4 hours in oven, and I got better results. Of course, don't forget those 4 hours were after 12 plus 6 hours of drying here, but it definitely can be used to keep the filament dry during the printing. Because printing maybe, I don't know, 6, 7, 10 hours, and even in that short time the nylon can absorb moisture from there. So for that, definitely this filament dryer can be used. Also, I was very disappointed that when I saw first the specification, I saw it can temperatures are up to 80 degrees. I was very happy because I was sure that it can dry a nylon without any problems. But when I unboxed it and saw the manual, actually that is temperature for the heating element only, and the air goes only up to 50 degrees Celsius according to manual, but that's only low near the heating element. You saw in the middle of the box I measure only a little bit above 40 degrees Celsius, which is very low for example drying a nylon. I'm very curious, is this only my box? If you have the same filament dryer, please write me if you can measure the temperature here inside, approximately in the center of the box. What is the temperature there? In approximately 1 month I will do a side-by-side comparison with my eSUN filament dryer, because I want the comparison videos only after longer usage, when I have more experience with them. Until that, I hope these informations were useful to you. Thank you for watching, and happy drying!